Lyra moved carefully across the frozen plains of her world. The ground beneath her shimmered with frost, reflecting the pale light of the planet's twin suns. Her wings, thin and luminous, fluttered slightly with each step. She hated showing them to others. They were beautiful, fragile, but she thought they made her look awkward. In her mind, no one could see past the imperfections she imagined in herself. Her people were all around her, but Lyra stayed away. The villages of her kind were clustered in icy caves and glowing forests, full of aliens with wings that gleamed in colors she felt she could never match. They laughed together, danced, and admired each other's patterns of light. Lyra, though, kept to herself, preferring solitude to the fear of judgment. She spent her time crafting tools, observing strange crystals and studying the patterns of stars far above. "I don't belong," she whispered to herself, her breath forming tiny clouds in the cold air. "I am not like them. I am not beautiful." It had been this way since she was young. Other alien children would compare wings, glow patterns, and agility. Lyra had always been smaller, slower, and more fragile. She tried to hide her feelings, but every glance from a peer reminded her of her difference. She found comfort only in quiet tasks and the soft hum of the wind through the icy cliffs. One day, as she wandered near a crystal cavern, she noticed something strange. A small human craft had landed on the plain, its metal hull gleaming unnaturally in the twin suns. Humans were rare visitors, and most aliens avoided them. They were unpredictable, often loud, and their skin and shapes were different from any being Lyra had ever seen. Curiosity mixed with fear in her chest, but Lyra crept closer to observe. From behind a ridge, she saw a human stepping out of the craft. He moved with ease over the icy surface, carrying small devices that blinked with light. He did not seem afraid. His dark hair was tousled by the wind, and his eyes scanned the surroundings with intense focus. Lyra felt something stir inside her, a mixture of fascination and nervousness. The human knelt near a cluster of glowing crystals. He took careful notes on a small tablet, touching the crystals lightly as if he knew exactly how to handle them without breaking them. Lyra's curiosity grew. No human she had seen before had treated her world with such respect. Without realizing it, she stepped closer to get a better look. Her foot slipped on the icy ground and she tumbled forward. The human looked up instantly, his eyes widening in concern. "Wait, are you okay?" he called out. Lyra froze, her heart pounding. She had never heard a human speak her language, yet somehow his words made sense. She wanted to disappear, to hide in the nearest cavern, but the voice held a strange calmness that made it hard to run. "I'm fine," she stammered, lifting herself slightly. Her wings fluttered nervously. The human approached carefully, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "You're hurt," he said softly. "Here, let me help you." Lyra hesitated. No one had ever offered help without expecting something in return. But something in his eyes, gentle, honest, made her pause. She allowed him to guide her to her feet. He didn't touch her roughly. His hands were careful, almost reverent. For a moment, Lyra simply stared at him. She noticed the way his gaze held no judgment, no mockery, and then without thinking, he said words that made her freeze completely. "You're beautiful." The simple sentence echoed in her mind. Lyra's wings quivered. She had heard compliments before, but never like this. Never from someone so different. Someone who saw her as she was, not as she thought she looked. She felt frozen, unable to respond, unable to move. The human tilted his head, waiting patiently, sensing her discomfort. "I didn't mean to shock you," he said gently. "I just see you as you really are." Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to deny it, to tell him he must be mistaken. But his words, soft and steady, planted a tiny seed of hope she hadn't felt in years. Could it be possible that someone could see her as beautiful, even if she could not? The wind shifted and tiny ice particles sparkled around them. Lyra's glowing patterns flickered faintly as if they sensed her inner turmoil. She looked at the human more closely. He had dark eyes, bright with curiosity and warmth. He didn't seem afraid of her wings, her glow, or the icy world she had always thought would reject her. "Why are you here?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I study your world," he explained. "I want to learn about it, about the plants, the crystals, about everything. But meeting you is a gift. You're unlike anything I've seen." Lyra's wings fluttered with a strange mix of nervousness and excitement. She had spent her life avoiding attention, but this human didn't seem to want to control or judge her. He simply saw her, and in his gaze she felt something she had not felt in a long time. recognition, acceptance, even admiration. For the rest of the day, Lyra observed him from a distance, curious but hesitant. She didn't dare approach again, not yet. Every time she thought of his words, "You're beautiful," her chest tightened, and a warmth spread through her icy heart. That night, as Lyra returned to her small home in the cavern, she could not stop thinking about the human. She replayed the moment in her mind, turning over every word and gesture. Her wings glimmered faintly in the dim light of her home, reflecting the small spark of hope now growing inside her. "I am not alone," she whispered, surprised at herself. "Maybe someone can see me as I am." The next morning, the human was back. Lyra watched as he carefully documented the glowing flora near her cavern. She felt a strange urge to approach, but fear still held her back. What if he didn't see her as beautiful again? What if she disappointed him? Still, she stayed nearby, listening as he spoke to himself, marveling at the world around him. His voice was calm and patient, and his admiration for the planet seemed genuine. Lyra realized she wanted to know him, to understand him, even if it terrified her. Days passed, and Lyra found herself drawn to the human more and more. She began leaving small tools and crystals near the places he explored, watching from a safe distance to see his reaction. Each time he smiled at her gifts, her confidence grew, and the idea that she might actually be beautiful, inside and out, began to take root. But Lyra also felt fear. Her past had taught her that she didn't belong, that beauty was reserved for others, not for her. She wondered if this human's words were just kindness, not truth. And yet, every time he looked at her, every time he smiled, a small part of her wanted to believe. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the icy plains, Lyra perched on a ridge overlooking the human's camp. She felt the cold wind against her wings and the warm hope stirring in her chest. The human had changed something inside her. For the first time, she considered that maybe she didn't have to hide forever. She didn't know what the future would hold. She didn't know if she could ever fully accept her own beauty. But one thing was clear. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt seen. And seeing, she realized, could be the beginning of everything. Lyra stayed hidden as she watched the human Daniel move across the icy plains. He seemed comfortable in the alien world, bending down to examine plants that glowed softly, adjusting his instruments and scribbling notes on a small tablet. She admired his confidence. Every action he took showed a calm curiosity, a way of seeing the world that was different from her own people. For days, Lyra observed him from a distance. She wanted to approach, but fear kept her hidden. Her mind was full of doubts. What if he only said I'm beautiful to be polite? She thought. What if he notices my flaws? My wings aren't perfect. My glow isn't strong enough. My body is too small, and yet something inside her wanted to trust him. She remembered the gentle tone of his voice, the warmth in his eyes, and the kindness in his words. That moment when he had said, "You're beautiful," echoed in her mind again and again. It was the first time anyone had said something like that to her without judgment or expectation. Lyra's curiosity finally won. She stepped closer, moving carefully across the frosted rocks. Her wings shimmered faintly, betraying her presence. Daniel looked up immediately. His eyes widened, but instead of fear or surprise, he smiled. "You're here," he said gently. "I was hoping to see you again." Lyra froze. He remembered me. Her wings trembled as she nodded slightly. I didn't mean to intrude," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "You're not intruding. I'm glad you're here. I want to learn from you, if you'll let me." Lyra's heart skipped. No human had ever asked her something like that. Most avoided her world because it was dangerous or because they didn't understand it. Daniel, however, seemed genuinely interested in learning from her, seeing value in her knowledge. Slowly, cautiously, Lyra stepped closer. Daniel stayed perfectly still, giving her space. She noticed how careful he was, how he never reached out suddenly or made a loud movement. His respect for her boundaries made her feel safer than she had in years. I can show you the crystals," she said finally, her voice low. "They are very fragile. If you touch them the wrong way, they break." Daniel's eyes lit up. "I'd love that, please." Together they moved toward a cluster of glowing crystals near the edge of the icy forest. Lyra demonstrated how to hold them, how to observe their patterns, and how to measure their energy without causing damage. Daniel watched attentively, asking questions with a soft curiosity that made Lyra's heart flutter. You have a great eye for detail, he said after a while. I would have broken half of these in an hour. Lyra felt warmth in her chest. Praise was not new, but coming from him it felt different. It wasn't meant to make her feel obligated or embarrassed. It was simply an honest observation. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the icy plain, Lyra began to relax. She found herself laughing softly at Daniel's mistakes when he tried to balance a crystal on a rock. He laughed too, a deep warm sound that made her feel lighter than she had in years. They spent hours exploring the nearby cliffs, noting the way the ice refracted light and the small, bioluminescent plants that clung to cracks in the rocks. Lyra explained the plants' uses for her people. Some could heal wounds, others could provide energy in the cold, and a few were purely decorative, adding beauty to the icy world. Daniel listened with fascination, clearly impressed by her knowledge. "You've lived here your whole life?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes, I know it well, but it is also easy to feel small in such a big world. Sometimes I feel invisible." Daniel tilted his head, thoughtful. "Invisible? But you're not. You're the opposite. You're strong, smart, and beautiful." Lyra's wings fluttered nervously. She wanted to argue, to deny it, but the words reached a part of her that had been buried for years. Could it be true? Could someone really see her as beautiful inside and out? Over the next few days, their interactions became more frequent. Daniel returned every morning, always careful not to disturb her, always observing, always respectful. Sometimes he brought small tools, sometimes samples from his ship, and sometimes just his presence. Lyra found herself waiting for him, curious about what he would say or do next. One afternoon, Daniel handed her a small device. "This measures energy patterns in crystals," he explained. "I thought you might like it." Lyra took it, her fingers brushing his lightly. She felt a spark, a gentle connection that made her pulse quicken. "Thank you," she said softly. "It is useful." "You're welcome," he replied, smiling. "I want to make your work easier. You have a gift, and I don't want you to struggle with tools that aren't suited for you." Lyra's heart warmed. His words were always considerate, never demanding, never condescending. For the first time, she felt seen, appreciated, and understood. As the days turned into weeks, Lyra began to trust Daniel more. She showed him hidden caves, secret patterns of glowing ice, and the delicate plants that only grew in the coldest regions. Each time she shared something personal about her world, he treated it with care, never mocking, never rushing. One evening, after a long day of exploring, they sat together on a ridge overlooking the icy plains. The twin suns were setting, casting pink and orange light across the snow. Lyra's wings glimmered softly, reflecting the light in delicate patterns. I never thought I could feel this way," she admitted quietly. "I always thought I was alone, that no one could see me as I am." Daniel looked at her with gentle eyes. "You're not alone anymore. And I see you truly." Lyra felt her chest tighten. She wanted to believe him, to let herself accept the possibility that she was more than her doubts, that she was beautiful. But old fears lingered. She had been invisible for so long that it was hard to trust someone so easily. "Why do you care about me?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Because I see your courage," he said simply. "You live in a world that can be harsh and unforgiving, yet you navigate it with care and intelligence. You create beauty in a place that is harsh. That is worth noticing." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She had never thought of herself in that way. Courage, intelligence, beauty. She had always believed those were qualities others had, not her. But his words made her wonder if perhaps she had been wrong. The wind picked up, carrying sparkling ice particles that danced in the fading light. Lyra looked down at her wings, thinking of how fragile and luminous they were. She remembered his first words, "You're beautiful." She realized that beauty wasn't only about perfection. It was about being oneself, about the way one carried courage, kindness, and knowledge. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She stared at the ceiling of her icy cavern, thinking about Daniel and his words. For the first time, she imagined herself not as the alien who didn't belong, but as someone worthy of recognition and care. The next morning, she decided to leave her hiding place and approach Daniel without fear. As she stepped onto the frosted plain, her wings shimmering with nervous anticipation, she felt a sense of determination she had never known before. She was ready to face her doubts, to learn from this human who had shown her kindness without expectation. When Daniel saw her approaching, his face lit up with a smile. "I'm glad you came," he said warmly. Lyra's wings trembled, but she nodded. "I want to learn more from you about your world. And maybe about myself." Daniel's eyes softened. "We can do that together. There is much to discover, both in this world and in each of us." For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of hope. She realized that she didn't have to face the world alone anymore. With Daniel by her side, perhaps she could finally see herself as she truly was, beautiful, capable, and worthy. And so their friendship began in earnest. Each day they explored, laughed, and shared knowledge. Lyra's confidence grew slowly, like the delicate glow of ice crystals in the sun. She learned to trust herself and, for the first time, to trust someone else entirely. The icy world around them was harsh and unforgiving, yet in the presence of Daniel, Lyra felt warmth, acceptance, and a spark of something new, something that would change her life forever. The icy wind howled across the plains as Lyra and Daniel ventured farther from the familiar cliffs. Lyra led the way, her wings glowing faintly in the dim light, guiding them through narrow crevices and frozen tunnels. The farther they went, the more fragile the terrain became. The ice was thin in places, cracking with the weight of each step. Lyra's heart beat faster, not from fear of Daniel, but from the responsibility of keeping them both safe. "I've never seen this part of the planet," Daniel said, carefully placing each footstep to avoid the fragile ice. "You must know it better than anyone." Lyra nodded, her nerves tingling. "Yes, but even I must be careful. The ice can be unpredictable." As they navigated a narrow ridge, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Lyra froze, her wings bristling. "Stay close," she warned. "The ice. It's unstable here." Daniel didn't hesitate. He trusted her guidance, moving precisely as she instructed. Together, they crossed the ridge safely, hearts pounding from the near danger. Once on solid ground, Daniel let out a low whistle. "That was close. You handled it well." Lyra's cheeks warmed. Praise had always made her uneasy, but from Daniel it felt real. He didn't speak to flatter her. He spoke to recognize her skill. "Thank you," she said softly, her wings quivering with nervous relief. They continued their exploration, discovering a cavern hidden beneath layers of ice. The entrance was narrow, almost invisible, but Lyra's keen eyes spotted the faint glow of crystals inside. "I've never let anyone see this place," she admitted. "It is and special." Daniel's eyes widened as he stepped inside. The cavern was breathtaking. Crystals of every shape and size covered the walls, glowing softly in hues of blue, purple, and gold. Light refracted across the ice, creating patterns that danced across the cavern floor. Lyra moved carefully, her wings spreading slightly to balance herself. "These crystals, they're incredible," Daniel whispered. "I've never seen anything like them." "How did you find this place?" Lyra smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and shyness. "I come here when I need to think, when I feel small. The crystals remind me that even fragile things can shine brightly." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "You do shine brightly, Lyra, not just the crystals, you." Lyra froze at his words. She had heard him compliment her before, but this felt different. There was no hesitation, no doubt. His gaze held a certainty that made her feel both exposed and seen. She looked down, unsure how to respond, her wings fluttering nervously. They spent hours in the cavern, Daniel documenting the crystals while Lyra explained their properties. Some could store energy, others emitted light in patterns that could communicate messages across distances. She demonstrated how to handle the delicate formations, careful not to break a single crystal. "You've lived here all your life, and yet you keep discovering new things," Daniel said admiringly. "You're brave, Lyra. You explore and learn even when it's dangerous." Lyra's chest tightened. She had always thought of herself as small and cautious, someone who avoided attention. But Daniel's words made her wonder if perhaps her quiet observation and careful movements were actually forms of courage. As evening approached, the temperature dropped sharply. Snow began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, coating the cavern in a sparkling white blanket. Lyra's wings shivered and she instinctively drew closer to Daniel. "We should head back," she said, her voice low. "The storm is coming." Daniel nodded. "Lead the way. I trust you." The journey back was tense. Visibility was low, and the wind pushed against them like a solid wall. Lyra took careful steps, scanning the ice for weak spots. At one point, a large sheet of ice cracked beneath them. Lyra reacted instantly. grabbing Daniel's arm and pulling him back just as the ice splintered and fell into the frozen abyss below. Daniel's eyes were wide with awe and gratitude. "You saved me," he said softly, his voice filled with respect. Lyra's wings drooped slightly. "I didn't want anything bad to happen to you. You're important to me." Daniel smiled, warmth radiating from him despite the cold. "You're important to me too, Lyra, more than you know." They continued side by side, moving carefully through the storm. Lyra realized something she had never admitted before. She cared about Daniel more than she expected. Not just because he complimented her, but because he respected her, trusted her, and believed in her abilities. At one point, Daniel slipped on the ice. Lyra reacted instinctively, catching him by the arm. Their faces were close, and for a brief moment time seemed to stop. Lyra's wings brushed against his back, and she felt a warmth spread through her chest. Daniel looked at her, his dark eyes soft and steady. "You're amazing," he said quietly. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Lyra's breath caught. She wanted to believe him, wanted to accept that she mattered to someone. Her wings fluttered nervously, and she looked away, embarrassed. "You're kind. Too kind," she murmured. Daniel chuckled softly. "Kind? Maybe, but I mean it." "You're brave, smart, and beautiful." Not just outside Lyra, inside too. Her wings quivered. The words had a power she had never felt before. They made her want to cry and laugh at the same time. She had spent her whole life thinking she was invisible, flawed, and unworthy. Yet here was someone who saw her true self. Someone who made her feel like she belonged. As the storm began to ease, they finally reached the edge of the forest. Lyra paused, looking back at the cavern they had left behind. The crystals glowed faintly in the snow, like tiny stars scattered across the ice. "I never thought I could show anyone this place," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Daniel smiled gently. "I'm honored that you did. Thank you, Lyra. You trust me, and that means a lot." Lyra nodded, feeling a strange warmth spread through her chest. She realized that trust was a gift she had never given freely before. With Daniel, it felt natural, even necessary. That night, as they settled near a sheltered ridge, Lyra finally let herself speak openly. I've always thought I was ugly. My wings are too small. My glow isn't strong. I don't fit with my people." Daniel listened quietly, nodding. "Lyra, you've spent too long thinking that way. I see someone incredible, someone unique, strong, and beautiful. You don't have to change for anyone, not even yourself." Lyra's wings fluttered, the glow on them softening in the cold night air. She felt something she had never felt before: acceptance. She realized that beauty wasn't only about appearance. It was about courage, kindness, knowledge, and heart. Daniel saw all of that in her. I want to believe you," she whispered, almost afraid to admit it. "You don't have to just yet," he said softly. "But I'll be here. And maybe one day you will." For the first time in her life, Lyra felt hope. She realized that the icy world around her, which had always seemed isolating and harsh, could also be a place of discovery, friendship, and warmth. She had found someone who saw her truth, and that truth was enough to begin changing how she saw herself. They spent the night watching the stars above, the twin suns glow, fading into the cold darkness. Lyra leaned slightly against Daniel, feeling a rare sense of safety. She had never shared this closeness with anyone before, and it frightened her. But it also made her feel alive in a way she hadn't known was possible. The next morning, they continued their exploration, but now Lyra moved with more confidence. Her wings fluttered with energy, her steps were sure, and her heart felt lighter. Daniel noticed the change, smiling as he recorded notes about the crystals and plants they discovered. "You're different today," he observed. "Stronger, more confident." Lyra smiled faintly. "Perhaps seeing the world with someone else changes how you see yourself too." Daniel nodded. "Exactly. We can learn from each other, and together we can face anything this world throws at us." Lyra realized he was right. She had spent her life avoiding others, hiding from judgment and doubting her worth. But with Daniel, she didn't feel weak or small. She felt capable. She felt brave. And for the first time, she felt that she could be beautiful. As they trekked across the icy plains side by side, Lyra's mind was alive with new possibilities. She didn't know what the future held, but she understood one thing clearly. She no longer had to face the world alone. With Daniel's guidance, kindness, and trust, she could explore not only her world but the parts of herself she had long ignored. And that realization made the cold wind feel warm, the icy ground solid, and the lonely world suddenly full of promise. The days passed quickly on the icy plains, and Lyra and Daniel continued exploring deeper into the alien world. Lyra had grown more confident, her wings glowing brightly as she moved across the snow-covered cliffs. She had begun to trust herself, and slowly, she trusted Daniel even more. The bond between them had deepened, built on shared discoveries, laughter, and quiet moments beneath the twin suns. One morning, as they set out toward a region Lyra had never fully explored, she noticed dark clouds gathering over the mountains. The air grew cold and heavy, carrying the scent of snow and ice. "A storm is coming," she warned. "We should be careful." Daniel glanced at the sky, then at her. "We can handle it together, Lyra. Lead the way." As they trekked through the winding paths, the wind picked up, whipping against their faces and chilling them to the bone. Lyra's wings glimmered as she shielded Daniel from the sharp gusts. The snow began falling thickly, covering the jagged rocks and making the path slippery. Suddenly, the ice beneath them cracked with a loud snap. Lyra's heart leapt, and she grabbed Daniel's hand. "Step back," she shouted, pulling him to safer ground. Daniel stumbled but regained his balance. "You saved me again," he said, his voice tinged with admiration. "How do you always know where it's safe?" Lyra smiled faintly, trying to hide her worry. "Experience and caution. You must always respect the ice." As the storm grew stronger, they came across a narrow canyon with a frozen river below. Lyra hesitated. "We can cross, but it's dangerous. One wrong step." She didn't finish the sentence, but Daniel understood. "I trust you," he said simply. "Show me the way." Carefully, Lyra led him along the treacherous path, testing each step before moving forward. The wind howled, the snow stung their faces, and the ice threatened to give way beneath them. But Lyra's confidence and skill guided them safely across. Once on solid ground, Daniel looked at her with wide eyes. "You're incredible, Lyra. I don't know anyone else who could do this." Lyra's wings fluttered nervously, her glow softening. I'm not always sure of myself," she admitted. "But when I focus, when I respect the world, I can do more than I think." Daniel smiled warmly. "And I see that. Every day." As they continued, they stumbled upon a hidden valley, filled with glowing plants that bent under the weight of snow. The valley was breathtaking, a secret place untouched by most of her kind. Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Few have ever seen this," she whispered. "It is one of the most beautiful places on our planet." Daniel's eyes lit up. "It's incredible. Thank you for sharing it with me." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. Sharing this hidden place with someone else felt strange but wonderful. For the first time, she realized that showing her world to someone didn't make her weak. It made her brave. They spent hours exploring the valley, documenting plants, examining crystals, and noting patterns of light. Daniel asked questions constantly, and Lyra explained everything patiently, enjoying his genuine curiosity. His admiration was steady, never pushy, never condescending. It made her feel valued, respected, and beautiful. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the snowy valley, Lyra and Daniel settled near a small frozen pond. The surface of the ice reflected the soft glow of the plants around them, creating a shimmering mirror. "I've never felt like this before," Lyra admitted quietly, her wings brushing the snow. "I've always thought I was unimportant, invisible, ugly." Daniel shook his head gently. "You're none of those things. You're brave, kind, smart, and beautiful. Not just for how you look, but for who you are." Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, to let herself accept that she mattered. But old doubts lingered. She had spent so long thinking herself unworthy that it was difficult to trust even the kindest words. "I want to believe you," she whispered. "I really do." Daniel reached out and gently took her hand. "Then let me help you. We'll face this world together. You don't have to do it alone." Lyra's wings fluttered nervously. The simple touch sent warmth through her body. She had never experienced such closeness before, and it both frightened and excited her. Slowly she nodded. Okay. Together. Just as she spoke, a loud crack echoed across the valley. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. Snow and ice shifted violently around them. A large sheet of ice above the pond was breaking, threatening to collapse into the valley below. "Move!" Lyra shouted, pulling Daniel to safety just in time. The ice shattered with a deafening crash, sending a spray of snow into the air. Daniel looked at her in awe. "You saved me again. You're amazing." Lyra felt a mix of fear and pride. The world around them was dangerous, yet she had the skill, courage, and quick thinking to protect both herself and Daniel. For the first time, she began to see herself as capable and strong. As the storm settled, they sat together on a small rock, catching their breath. Lyra's wings glowed softly in the twilight, reflecting her inner warmth. Daniel looked at her, his expression full of respect and admiration. "Lyra, you're incredible. I mean it. I've never met anyone like you." Lyra felt a tear slip from her eye. I've always doubted myself," she admitted. "But you make me feel seen, important." Daniel's hand covered hers. "You are important, more than you realize. And I'll always see you, Lyra. Always." The words settled in her heart like a gentle flame. For the first time, she believed that someone could truly see her, not just her outward appearance, but her courage, her heart, and her uniqueness. The storm, the dangers, the harsh cold, they all felt less threatening because she was not alone. Over the following days, Lyra and Daniel continued exploring together. They climbed icy cliffs, crossed frozen rivers, and discovered hidden caves filled with crystals. With each adventure, Lyra's confidence grew. She began to understand that her uniqueness, her fragile wings, her glowing patterns, her quiet intelligence, was something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Daniel never stopped encouraging her. He pointed out her skills, praised her creativity, and reminded her of her inner beauty. Slowly, Lyra began to believe him. She no longer shrank from attention or doubted her worth. She laughed more freely, spoke more confidently, and allowed herself to enjoy the bond they were forming. One evening, as they rested near a glowing forest, Lyra looked at Daniel and smiled. "I never thought I could feel this way," she admitted. "I always thought I was alone, that no one could see me as I am." Daniel shook his head gently. "You're never alone. And I see you, Lyra. Truly." Lyra's wings fluttered with a soft glow. She realized that trust and friendship could change everything. The fear that had kept her isolated for so long began to fade. She felt capable, seen, and beautiful. Not because of what she looked like, but because of who she truly was. That night, under the shimmering glow of the forest and the faint light of the twin suns, Lyra and Daniel shared stories of their lives. Lyra spoke of her childhood, of moments when she had felt small and unworthy. Daniel shared stories of his world, of humans exploring strange planets and learning from other species. They laughed, they learned, and they grew closer. Lyra realized that beauty was not only in appearance, but in courage, kindness, and the willingness to connect with others. Daniel had helped her see that, and for the first time she felt ready to accept herself fully. As the stars appeared in the cold sky, Lyra looked at her wings, shimmering softly in the moonlight. She thought of Daniel's words, "You're beautiful." She smiled, finally understanding that her beauty had always been there, hidden beneath doubt and fear. And now, with Daniel by her side, she was ready to shine. The morning light filtered through the icy canopy, reflecting off the snow and crystals, creating a brilliant display of colors. Lyra stretched her wings, feeling their strength and glow more vividly than ever before. For the first time, she truly felt proud of herself, not just her abilities, but who she was inside. Daniel stood nearby, adjusting his instruments, completely absorbed in his work, yet somehow completely aware of her presence. "Good morning," he called, looking up and smiling warmly. "You're glowing even brighter today." Lyra's wings fluttered lightly, the warmth of his words spreading through her chest. "Good morning," she replied softly. "I feel different today, stronger." Daniel nodded, a spark of pride in his eyes. "I've noticed. You've grown so much since we first met, not just in skill but in courage and confidence." Lyra felt a shy smile tug at her lips. "I never thought I could feel this way," she admitted. "But being with you, it changes everything. I feel like I belong, like I finally matter." Daniel stepped closer, his dark eyes meeting hers. "You do matter, Lyra, you always did. I just helped you see it." Lyra's wings shivered, but this time with excitement, not fear. She had spent so long hiding, doubting herself, believing she was unworthy. Daniel had shown her that she was more than her doubts, that her uniqueness made her strong, and that kindness and courage were the true measures of beauty. "I want to show you something," Lyra said suddenly, her voice trembling with anticipation. She led Daniel through a narrow path, deeper into the icy forest. The wind whispered through the trees and the snow sparkled like diamonds under the sunlight. Eventually they reached a secluded glade. In the center stood a crystalline tree, its branches glowing with soft pulsing light. The crystals shimmered in every color imaginable, reflecting on the snow around them. Lyra's eyes widened. "This is my favorite place," she whispered. "I've never shown anyone before." Daniel's gaze softened as he stepped closer. "It's beautiful, but so are you, Lyra, and I think that's why you wanted to share it." Lyra felt her wings flutter nervously. "Yes, I wanted you to see it. And to see me," he smiled gently. "I already see you completely. And I love what I see." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected to hear words like that, not from anyone, let alone a human. Yet here he was, speaking honestly, seeing her in a way no one else ever had. Her wings glowed brighter, reflecting her inner excitement and newfound confidence. They spent the day in the glade exploring the crystalline tree and the glowing flora around it. Lyra showed Daniel how the crystals could store energy and emit messages across distances, demonstrating her knowledge with pride. Daniel listened attentively, fascinated by her explanations, and praised her skill and intelligence at every turn. As night fell, the glade transformed into a glowing wonderland. The crystals on the tree pulsed with soft light, illuminating the snow in colors of pink, blue, and gold. Lyra and Daniel sat together, their wings brushing slightly, the cold forgotten in the warmth of their shared presence. "You know," Daniel said softly, "I've met many people in my life, but I've never met anyone like you. You are extraordinary, Lyra." Inside and out, Lyra's chest tightened. She had spent years believing she was invisible, flawed, and unworthy. But now, with Daniel's words, she felt the walls she had built around herself begin to crumble. I never believed anyone could see me like that," she whispered. "I do," Daniel replied simply, his gaze steady and sincere. "And I always will." Lyra's wings quivered with emotion. She realized that beauty wasn't just about appearance, it was about courage, kindness, intelligence, and heart. Daniel had shown her that. He had helped her see her worth, and in doing so, had unlocked a confidence she had never known. The next morning, Lyra awoke feeling lighter than ever before. She stretched her wings, feeling their strength and brilliance. She realized that she no longer feared being seen, no longer doubted her abilities, and no longer hid from the world. With Daniel by her side, she could face anything. They ventured out together, exploring new parts of the icy plains. Lyra led the way with confidence, her wings glowing brightly in the morning light. Daniel followed, recording data, asking questions, and admiring the world through her eyes. Every step they took strengthened their bond, built on trust, respect, and admiration. During a break near a frozen waterfall, Daniel turned to Lyra, his expression serious but gentle. "Lyra, there's something I want to ask you," he said. Lyra's wings fluttered nervously. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "I know we come from different worlds, and I know the future is uncertain. But I care about you, more than I ever thought I could care about anyone. Lyra, will you let me be by your side, always?" Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest, her wings glowing brighter than ever. She realized that she had waited her entire life for someone to see her, to accept her, and to believe in her. Daniel had done all of that and more. "Yes," she whispered, tears of happiness in her eyes. "I want you by my side, always." Daniel smiled, relief and joy flooding his features. He reached out and gently held her hands, their wings brushing together. "Then we'll face this world together, Lyra. Nothing will stop us." For the first time, Lyra felt completely free. She no longer doubted her worth, her beauty, or her abilities. With Daniel's love and trust, she embraced herself fully. Wings, glow, knowledge, and heart. She realized that her uniqueness was her strength, her courage was her beauty, and her kindness was her power. As the twin suns set over the icy plains, casting long shadows and golden light, Lyra and Daniel stood together, wings glowing softly in the twilight. The world around them was harsh, cold, and dangerous, but it no longer frightened her. She had found her place, her purpose, and her companion. "You see me as I am," Lyra said softly, leaning slightly against him. "I do," Daniel replied, "and I love who you are. Every part of you." Lyra's heart soared. For the first time, she felt truly seen, truly valued, and truly beautiful. Not because someone said it, but because she believed it herself, with Daniel by her side. That night, as the stars appeared above the icy plains and the twin moons reflected on the snow, Lyra and Daniel watched in silence, their wings touching lightly. Lyra knew that life would still bring challenges, storms, and dangers, but she no longer feared them. With Daniel's trust, friendship, and love, she could face anything. The icy world that had once seemed lonely and unforgiving now shimmered with possibility. Lyra understood that beauty was not just in appearances, but in courage, heart, and the willingness to connect with others. Daniel had helped her see that, and together they had discovered a bond stronger than fear, stronger than isolation, and stronger than doubt. Lyra closed her eyes, letting the warmth of trust and love fill her. She felt her wings glow brighter than ever, reflecting her inner light and newfound confidence. The human who had called her beautiful had not just seen her outward appearance, he had seen her soul. And for the first time in her life, Lyra truly saw herself the same way. Together, they stood on the frozen plains, wings shimmering, hearts full, ready to explore the wonders of the world and the endless possibilities of their lives. Lyra had discovered that being seen, trusted, and loved could change everything. And in Daniel, she had found someone who made her feel whole, capable, and, most importantly, beautiful. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, and the snow glimmered under their fading light. Lyra and Daniel turned toward each other, wings brushing gently, smiles on their faces. For the first time, Lyra felt completely at peace. She had faced her doubts, embraced her uniqueness, and discovered a love that saw her for who she truly was. And in that moment, surrounded by the icy beauty of her world, Lyra knew that she had finally found her place not just in the world, but in someone's heart and in her own.